The morning sun had barely crested the rolling hills when Marcus Reyes knew something was terribly wrong. The pristine white envelope tucked into his mailbox stood out like a beacon of impending doom against the rugged landscape of his 47-acre ranch. His weathered hand, calloused from years of hard work, trembled slightly as he pulled out the certified letter from the Sagebrush Estates Homeowners Association. Marcus had inherited this land from his grandfather, a testament to generations of hard work, sweat, and an unwavering connection to the earth. The ranch wasn't just property, it was his family's legacy, a living, breathing piece of history that stretched back over 8 decades. Every fence post, every acre of grazing land held memories of his grandfather's determination and his own childhood spent learning the intricacies of ranch life. The letter's letterhead was crisp, its language clinical and cold. As Marcus unfolded the document, his heart began to race. The Homeowners Association, led by a woman he'd come to know as Barbara Hartwell, or HOA Karen, as the local ranchers not so affectionately called her, was demanding an extraordinary amount of his land. Pursuant to Section 7.3 of the Sagebrush Estates Community Development Guidelines, the letter read, "The Homeowners Association proposes an immediate land redistribution plan that requires the acquisition of approximately 35 acres of the Reyes Ranch property." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. 35 acres? That was nearly 75% of his entire ranch. The proposed redistribution would effectively gut his livelihood, leaving him with nothing more than a postage stamp-sized plot surrounded by newly constructed mansions and manicured lawns. He knew Barbara Hartwell's type. She'd moved to the outskirts of town 5 years ago, bringing with her an urban sensibility that clashed violently with the rural community's way of life. Fresh from Chicago with her designer sunglasses and perfectly pressed pantsuit, she'd immediately begun campaigning to transform the area into a suburban paradise. Marcus remembered the first community meeting where she'd spoken. Her voice, sharp and nasal, had cut through the room like a knife. "These old ranch lands are inefficient," she proclaimed. "We could maximize property values by developing a more modern community layout." The local ranchers had pushed back, but Barbara was relentless. She wormed her way onto the HOA board, systematically changing bylaws and pushing through increasingly restrictive guidelines. And now she wanted his land. What Barbara didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any rancher. He was a 4th-generation cattleman who'd weathered drought, economic downturns, and family hardships. This land wasn't just real estate, it was his birthright. As he stood on his front porch, the letter crumpled in his fist. Marcus made a decision. He would fight. The upcoming battle would test everything he believed in: his right to maintain his family's legacy, his connection to the land, and his determination to stand against a system that seemed designed to steamroll individual property rights. Little did Barbara Hartwell know she had just declared war on the wrong rancher. The county courthouse steps felt cold and unforgiving beneath Marcus's boots as he waited for his hearing. 3 weeks had passed since receiving the HOA's land redistribution proposal, and he spent every waking moment preparing his defense. His longtime friend and local attorney, Alina Rodriguez, stood beside him, her sharp legal mind already dissecting the HOA's argument. "They're using an obscure clause from the original county development plan," Alina whispered, flipping through a thick stack of documents. "But the language is deliberately vague. It's like they're trying to create a legal labyrinth." Marcus nodded, his weathered face set in determination. The ranch community had rallied behind him. Local farmers, retired ranchers, and even some newer residents who understood the importance of preserving the area's agricultural heritage. Word had spread quickly about Barbara Hartwell's aggressive land grab, and it had united people in ways no one could have predicted. Inside the courtroom, Barbara sat perfectly poised, her tailored navy suit a stark contrast to Marcus's worn denim and weathered flannel shirt. She looked like someone who had never gotten her hands dirty, who had never understood the true meaning of land ownership beyond a balance sheet. The county judge, Margaret Thompson, was a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s who had grown up in the area. As she reviewed the documents, Marcus could see her brow furrowing with increasing frustration. "Miss Hartwell," Judge Thompson began, her voice carrying a hint of controlled irritation, "your proposal suggests that the Reyes Ranch land is underutilized and inconsistent with community development standards. Yet I'm looking at tax records showing this property has been a productive cattle ranch for generations." Barbara's response was immediate and rehearsed. "Your Honor, while we respect the historical significance, our community needs modern infrastructure. The land can be developed into high-value residential properties that will increase tax revenue and community aesthetic." Marcus' attorney Alina stood, her argument precise and passionate. "This isn't just about land, Your Honor. This is about preserving a way of life. The Reyes Ranch has been a cornerstone of this community for over 80 years. The proposed redistribution is nothing short of systematic elimination of local agricultural heritage." The courtroom fell silent. Marcus could feel the weight of his grandfather's memory pressing down on his shoulders. This was more than a legal battle. It was a fight for survival, for identity, for everything his family had built. As the hearing continued, Marcus noticed something unexpected. Several homeowners from Sagebrush Estates were watching him, some with expressions of curiosity, others with growing sympathy. Not everyone supported Barbara's aggressive tactics. During a brief recess, a younger couple approached Marcus. The woman, dressed in business casual, introduced herself. "Mr. Reyes, we just bought a home in the development. We had no idea the HOA was trying to do something like this." Her husband nodded. "This seems wrong. We moved here because we love the rural character of the area." Marcus realized then that his fight was becoming more than just his own. It was becoming a community issue, a line in the sand between preservation and unchecked development. The day's hearing would conclude soon, and while no immediate decision would be made, Marcus knew the real battle was just beginning. Barbara Hartwell was not the type to back down easily, and neither was he. The attack came on a Tuesday morning, quiet and calculated. Marcus first noticed something was wrong when he discovered his main irrigation line had been deliberately sabotaged. The heavy steel pipe, which ran nearly a quarter-mile across his property, had been cut with precision, a professional job designed to cause maximum damage with minimal evidence. His cattle were the first to suffer. Without proper water access, the herd would be at risk of dehydration, potentially costing him hundreds of thousands of dollars in livestock losses. Marcus knew this wasn't just vandalism. This was a strategic assault meant to break his spirit and force him to sell. He immediately called Elena Rodriguez, his attorney, who arrived within hours. As they examined the damaged pipeline, her investigative instincts kicked into high gear. "This wasn't random," she muttered, running her fingers along the clean cut of the metal pipe. "This was intentional, professional." Marcus didn't need to ask who was behind it. Barbara Hartwell's fingerprints were all over this, even if she carefully maintained plausible deniability. The HOA had escalated from legal maneuvering to economic warfare. That evening, a community meeting was called at the local community center. Word of the pipeline sabotage had spread quickly, and the room was packed. Ranchers, longtime residents, and even some of the newer homeowners from Sagebrush Estates crowded into the space, a low murmur of anger and disbelief filling the air. Elena stood up, presenting the evidence. "This is more than a property dispute," she declared. "This is an attempt to systematically destroy a local family's livelihood. The cut was made with specialized equipment, likely after careful reconnaissance of the property." Marcus watched as the mood in the room shifted. What had started as a bureaucratic land dispute was now seen as a personal attack, not just on him, but on the entire community's way of life. An unexpected ally emerged that night. Thomas Green, a retired engineer who had recently moved into the Sagebrush Estates development, stood up. "I've been reviewing the HOA bylaws," he announced, his voice carrying a mix of legal precision and moral indignation. "There are significant irregularities in how Barbara Hartwell has been interpreting and applying these rules." Green proceeded to outline a series of questionable decisions made by the HOA board. Financial discrepancies, selective enforcement of bylaws, and what appeared to be deliberate manipulation of community guidelines to benefit a select few. Barbara Hartwell, who was present at the meeting, sat stone-faced, but Marcus could see the first hint of worry in her eyes. This was no longer just a battle between her and a single rancher. The entire community was now watching and asking questions. As the meeting concluded, Marcus received an unexpected show of support. Homeowners from the development approached him, offering help with repairs, with legal research, with whatever resources they could muster. The pipeline sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Instead of breaking Marcus, it had united the community against Barbara and the HOA's tactics. That night, as Marcus walked his damaged property under the moonlight, he felt a sense of resolve stronger than ever. The fight was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to heat up. Little did he know, Barbara Hartwell was already planning her next move, a move that would push the conflict to its most dangerous and personal level yet. The legal counterattack came swiftly and without mercy. Barbara Hartwell had not been idle in the weeks following the community meeting. She'd assembled a team of high-powered lawyers from Sacramento, bringing in legal firepower that seemed completely disproportionate to a local land dispute. Their strategy was brutal and calculated. A new lawsuit was filed against Marcus, alleging environmental violations, unpermitted land use, and a laundry list of code infractions that would make even the most pedantic bureaucrat blush. Each allegation was crafted with surgical precision, designed to drain Marcus financially and emotionally. Elena Rodriguez knew they were in for the fight of their lives. Late one night in her small law office, she and Marcus pored over the documents, tracing the intricate web of legal challenges. "She's trying to bury you in litigation," Elena explained, her fingers tracing the complex legal language. Each of these claims requires extensive documentation, expert witnesses, and months, possibly years, of legal proceedings. The financial toll was immediate and devastating. Marcus was forced to divert nearly every resource he had into fighting the legal battle. His cattle operation, which had been the backbone of his family's livelihood for generations, began to suffer. He had to sell off parts of his herd, reduce staff, and cut back on essential maintenance. But Barbara had miscalculated one crucial factor: the community's growing support. Thomas Green, the retired engineer who had first exposed the HOA's irregularities, began organizing. He rallied homeowners, gathered documentation, and started a crowdfunding campaign to support Marcus's legal defense. Local businesses, ranchers, and even some national agricultural rights organizations began to take notice. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source: a whistleblower within the HOA. Someone close to Barbara Hartwell reached out to Elena with crucial information. Anonymous emails and documents began to paint a more sinister picture of Barbara's true motivations. It turned out that the land grab wasn't just about development. There were rumors of a massive real estate speculation scheme. Barbara and several of her associates had been quietly purchasing options on surrounding properties, betting that they could force Marcus out and then dramatically increase the value of the surrounding land. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Property records showed a complex network of shell companies, all linked back to Barbara and her inner circle. What had seemed like a bureaucratic land dispute was revealing itself to be a much more calculated financial scheme. Marcus' resolve was tested like never before. The legal bills were mounting, his ranch was struggling, and the stress was taking its physical toll. Some nights, he would walk the ranch land his grandfather had cherished, wondering if he could truly hold onto this legacy. But something unexpected was happening. The more Barbara pushed, the more the community pushed back. Local media began investigating. A documentary filmmaker reached out, interested in telling the story of the small rancher fighting against corporate-style HOA aggression. During a particularly difficult court hearing, Marcus caught Barbara's eye. She looked confident, almost smug. But there was something else there, a flicker of desperation. She hadn't expected this level of resistance. She hadn't anticipated that Marcus would fight back with everything he had. As the fourth chapter of this battle drew to a close, one thing became crystal clear. This was no longer just Marcus Reyes' fight. It had become a symbol of resistance against unchecked corporate and bureaucratic overreach. The final battles were yet to come, and Barbara Hartwell was about to learn that some roots run deeper than any legal document could ever cut. The breakthrough came during a deposition that would change everything. Barbara Hartwell had been so confident, so meticulously prepared, that she never saw the trap being laid until it was too late. Elena Rodriguez had spent months gathering evidence, connecting dots that seemed unrelated. Her strategy was patient, calculated, much like a rancher waiting for the perfect moment to break a wild stallion. The conference room at the county courthouse felt electric with tension as she began her questioning. "Miss Hartwell," Elena started, her voice calm and measured, "can you explain your connection to Limestone Development Group?" Barbara's perfectly composed facade flickered, just for a moment, but it was enough. A microscopic tell that seasoned attorneys live for. "I'm not sure what you mean," she responded, but her fingers gripped the edge of the table just a fraction too tightly. What followed was a masterful deconstruction of Barbara's elaborate facade. Through a series of precisely worded questions, Elena revealed a stunning web of financial connections. Limestone Development Group, it turned out, was not just another real estate company. It was directly linked to several of Barbara's close associates, with property purchase agreements that predated the HOA's land redistribution proposal by nearly 2 years. The implications were explosive. This wasn't just about community development or property values. This was a calculated land grab, with Marcus's ranch at the center of a multi-million-dollar real estate speculation scheme. Thomas Green, who had been quietly documenting everything, had uncovered critical evidence. Satellite imagery, property records, and financial transactions told a story of premeditated land acquisition. The HOA's actions weren't about community improvement, they were about corporate profit. Local media began to circle. A team from a national investigative journalism outlet arrived, sensing a story that went far beyond a simple property dispute. Interviews with longtime residents revealed a pattern of similar tactics used in other communities, a playbook of intimidation, legal harassment, and strategic land acquisition. Marcus found himself at the center of something much larger than his personal fight. He had become a symbol of resistance against corporate land predation. Ranchers from across the state began reaching out, sharing similar stories of harassment and attempted land grabs. The personal toll was immense. Marcus's ranch was bleeding money. The legal fees, the reduced cattle operations, the stress, it was wearing him down. Some nights, he would sit on his front porch, looking out over the land his grandfather had worked, wondering if he could hold on. But something remarkable was happening. The community had transformed. What started as a local dispute had become a movement. Crowdfunding had covered his legal expenses. Local businesses were offering support. Even some of the newer homeowners in sagebrush estates were organizing, demanding transparency from the HOA. Barbara Hartwell, for her part, was losing control of the narrative. Her carefully constructed image was crumbling. The aggressive legal tactics that had worked for her in the past were now backfiring spectacularly. During a particularly tense community meeting, a younger homeowner stood up and directly confronted Barbara. "You're supposed to represent our community," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disappointment. "But all you've done is try to destroy a family's livelihood for your own gain." The room fell silent. Barbara had no response. As the fifth act of this battle drew to a close, Marcus realized something profound. This was no longer just about saving his ranch. This was about exposing a system that had operated in the shadows for far too long. The final confrontation was approaching, and everything was about to change.